where are the low value men? Like, what are all the low value men up to during these trying times? Because the high value men, I know they're around. They won't shut the fuck up. Low value men, I have not heard a word out of. I'm starting to think I'm on their side. I think I want one of those. I want a low value man. They don't make podcasts. I haven't seen one low value man make a podcast. Do they not know how to use microphones? Maybe that's a good thing. That's hot. All right, I've never seen a man use a microphone for good.
Until now, everybody buckle up. It's low value mail time with your host, Danny Polishchuk. Happy Super Tuesday, everybody. It is a Super Tuesday, isn't it? Anyways. Shout out Gimp Gladly. Welcome to the League of the Low Value. And welcome back to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail. It is episode 98 on this Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024. And boy, do we got a humdinger for you. Joining us very shortly, we have Harry Cooper from Shark Hunters International. He is the author of a best-selling book, Hitler in Argentina, the documented truth of Hitler's escape from Berlin. And we're going to be, he's researched this extensively. He's written books. He runs tours about all this stuff. It's some wild stuff, and we're going to be getting into it very shortly. So thank you, everyone, for joining me. I don't want to hear any complaints about Legion of Skanks. It's not up to me. Before anything, please like and subscribe. Hit the like button. There's a bunch of you watching. Hit the like button, maybe leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, whatever. Just do one of the things that you can do if you're listening. If you're an audio listener, do something, okay? If you'd like to support all the fine work I'm doing here, you can do so by going over to patreon.com/lowvaluemail, M-A-I-L. You can go to Twitter and support me there. And once we hit 500 subs, the show will be a half an hour longer. So look at that. Plus, you get one of these nifty wrenches. You can also join the channel as well. So do that, please. Some upcoming news. So I don't know exactly when, but we are changing. I've officially decided we will be changing this show to Mondays and the Bathhouse to Tuesdays. It works a lot better. I'll be able to do more after shows, which I know you guys like the after shows. Last week's after show was insane. And I'm surprised I still have a YouTube channel after that. And so anyways, and then the Bathhouse will be moved to Tuesday. In regards to the Bathhouse, I apologize for last week. Sometimes shows get canceled last minute. It's not my fault. Blame Shane Gillis, because not actually, but he showed up at the stand and decided to do a spot on the 10 p.m. show, at which point the show sold out instantaneously. And then the green room was just packed full of people. And, what am I going to do? Kick them all out. Also, there might not be a Bathhouse tomorrow. I don't actually know yet, because unfortunately, another comedian, Marcelo Hernandez, he's doing a whole thing there at 10 o'clock. So it just seems like Tuesday. We've never had two in a row canceled like this. And we still might be on for tomorrow. I don't know yet. I hope we are. But anyways, probably sometime in April, we'll be switching over to the new schedule, Mondays and Tuesdays. And then finally, if you would like to see me live doing stand-up comedy, shout out to all of you who came out in Scottsdale, Conspiracy Extremist. Got to meet the Conspiracy Extremist in person. Very nice. And a lot of you came out and said, what's up? They were really fun shows. And you can catch me coming up in Saratoga Springs, Fairfield, Connecticut, Hamilton, Ontario, Dallas, Minneapolis, Edmonton, Vancouver, and I just put up the link for the Hamilton, Ontario shows. So if you live in and around the Hamilton, Ontario area on April 19th and 20th, come out to those. Okay, without further ado, let us bring on Mr. Harry Cooper. One moment, please. I don't have a producer. Bump. Are you there, Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, good evening. I'm here. Super Tuesday.
Super Tuesday. A happy Super Tuesday to all that celebrate. Thank you for coming and joining the show. I'm very, very excited to have you, and I think a lot of people are. You have some fascinating work that you do.
Yeah.
I've been
A lot of-
getting, yeah. I've been seeing the newsletter you put out with shark hunters, and it's pretty interesting stuff. So for people who do not know you, if you could just please quickly just tell people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, about myself, the Reader's Digest version. Uh, got out of high school, went to the Air Force, wanted to be a pilot, passed all the exams, but they said, too bad, we got too many pilots. So they put me in command of a 6-man team loading hydrogen bombs onto heavy bombers. Got out, went to college, had a regular job. I was an executive with a company in Chicago. Then I took to driving the super speedways for about 4 years. And I sold everything I owned, bought a 30-foot sailing yacht, advertised for female crew / companion, and got over 200 replies. Left Chicago with a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. And they were 24, and 25 years old, and I was 40. And that's basically what got me started into this. We were in the Bahamas, living a wonderful life. The girls were all great cooks. The water in the Bahamas is crystal clear and it's warm and it's just a wonderful place to live. Bumped into an island in the southern Exumas called Darby Island. And there was a ruined mansion on the hilltop. So I asked the old caretaker, and he said, they provided some fresh water and food to some German U-boats. I grew up in the war years, so my first thought was those dirty Nazis. I didn't know they were this close to America. As I found out later, they were a hell of a lot closer.
Yep.
But that's what we were taught. Germans were all no good, horrible Nazis, all sorts of war crimes. And so, okay, I tucked that in the back of my head, and the caretaker showed me where to chop through the underbrush and find the remains of the barracks and the radio shack. And I took photos. But I had 3 more important things on my mind: Debbie, Lynette, and Karen. So I put that all in the back of my head, and we went sailing. And finally, after 8 years, one by one, the girls would go back and a different girl would come out, because you can't be on vacation forever,
Right.
much as I tried. One day I reached in my wallet and I had $5 left to my name. So sailed back to Florida, hitchhiked up to Chicago, which is where I lived at the time. Here I am, former vice president of a company, hitchhiking up the highway. And I started to research. And I found out that this was all wartime propaganda. During a war, propaganda is a necessary weapon. You can't tell your soldiers that the guys on the other side of the battlefield, they love their country like you love yours. They've got a wife and kids they want to get home to. They go to the same church you go to. Now go kill them. Can't say that, because people would start saying, wait, let's rethink this. So yeah, I have to have them be an evil monster. And remember, when the American U.S. Marines were going to invade Okinawa, the Japanese told the people there that the Marines would cook and eat their children. So we've seen pictures of women by the thousands throwing their babies off cliffs and jumping after them. The Marines weren't going to cook and eat anybody's baby, but propaganda is important. So I find that these guys were honorable, and in the early days, before it was death for them to stay on the surface, they would help the survivors. One of our members, we've got members in, my God, we're getting emails from your guys already.
All right.
One of our members, Captain Peter Chelimidos, was a merchant skipper, American ship, and he got sunk in the North Atlantic by a German U-boat. And they were all bobbing around in their lifeboats, and the U-boat surfaced and came over to his lifeboat, and he asked if anybody needed any medical help. And Peter said, no, nobody was hurt. So the U-boat skipper gave him a compass and told him what direction.
Oh,
to steer to find land, which is just foolish. And then the U-boat skipper said, "I'd like to give you some fresh water, but our desalinator's down. So how about if I give you a few cases of beer?" So
okay.
that that they said, so many of these U-boat guys told me our mission was to sink ships, not to kill men. But didn't work out that for them, I guess. So
Sure.
then I found that uh, they had the worst attrition rate of any military force ever in history, except maybe the 300 Spartans. As a comparison, the United States submarine service had the worst attrition rate in the U.S. 1 man out of 7 was killed. That's a horrible, horrible attrition rate. But on the German side, it was the reverse. 1 man out of 7 came home. They were still standing in line, signing up, sending a letter home to mom. It was 9 out of 10 German U-boats failed to return from their first war patrol after about middle of 1943, Black May. They still did their duty, and 29,000, almost 30,000 of them didn't come home.
And so, how did you go get into the whole? Because I know that you've researched extensively. You've been to all these sites. You run these tours, right?
Right, right.
So, at what point did you come to the realization that Adolf Hitler did not kill himself in that bunker?
Oh, that was quite a ways down the line. I started Shark Hunters February of 1983. So we've just hit our 41st anniversary. This is not a hobby. I don't do, I was after I came back, I went back to work. I was vice president of a company and I just walked off. I quit without notice. And I was married by that time. And my wife wondered if I was nuts because we were about to have a baby. And she says, where's the security? And I said, I don't know. We have to do it. And nobody at Shark Hunters gets paid. Everybody, myself included, we're all volunteers. I'm at my desk where I'm sitting right now, but no later than 4:30 in the morning, and I go until 8 at night. And as you say, yes, I've been over there twice a year to Germany and a lot of other European countries, twice a year since 1988, except for the Kung flu scamdemic. Been down to Argentina 11 times. We got thousands of members in many countries, 78 countries. One of them early on, Don Angel Alcazar de Velasco. He was a Spaniard, of course, but he was working for the Abwehr, the German Secret Service. And
What year was this?
this was throughout the war.
Okay.
3 months he was stationed in the Führer bunker, and every day he had to give a report to Hitler on something. So he knew Hitler, and what was it? About a week before it all ended, he saw Hitler and Eva Braun, not Braun, Brown, forcibly drugged under orders of Martin Bormann and removed from the bunker. And then he got away. And he continued to work for the Third Reich. It did not end, it just moved. And he was sent to South America, where he met Hitler in 1952.
Sorry, say that again.
So-
Sorry, we're having a little internet issue. Could you just repeat that?
Okay, yeah. He was keeping files and photographs on two children, teenagers, who were in the Las Cruces, New Mexico school district. The boy's name was Adolfo, and was award for a star. And in, I think it was September 1952, he was ordered south. And he got on a plane and he flew down to, people like to say it's San Carlos de Bariloche. It was a little town back then, but it's now a big, huge tourist attraction. sitting on a massive big lake at the foothills of the Andes, beautifully. But he lived out closer to a place called Villa Langostura, and he lived there from 1940 to 55. And Don Angel gave us this whole story, typewritten, single-spaced, 114 pages long, all about how Hitler didn't die, how he met with Hitler down there. And we just picked it up from there, and we've proved it. One of our members, who I met personally, was a guy named Erich Priebke. He held the rank of Hauptsturmführer in the SS. He was a captain, and he moved down to Bariloche, and he was one of Hitler's personal guards in Bariloche. Now, who knew that Hitler didn't die? Stalin knew it. He publicly accused the United States and England of harboring Hitler in July of 45. Well, if the guy's dead in May and you've got his body, why are you looking for him in July? And if Stalin would have had Hitler's body, burnt or otherwise, he would have been on display behind glass in the Kremlin wall. And I love it when somebody wants to argue with me because they stayed awake in fifth grade history. Oh, no, they've got the body. And I ask, well, who's got the body? The Russians. The Russians got the body. And I tell them, я вас по-чудо-русски подводник. They what? And I tell them I'm an honorary Russian submariner. I was a commissar of the Soviet Union in the early part when the CIA asked me to go over there. I've been all through the Red Army Museum. Hitler ain't there. I've interviewed people in Argentina who saw him. The FBI knew he was there in my book, Hitler in Argentina. That's this guy here.
Yeah, we'll
there are. Say again?
I said we'll put a link down below so people can purchase a copy if they're interested.
There are several dozen FBI files in there. They knew he was gone. They knew he was in Argentina. And they even had an idea exactly where he was. And in middle of 1947, Truman told J. Edgar Hoover, quit. No more chasing Hitler. Stop. So why? We believe it was the quid pro quo. We leave Hitler alone to live out his life in Argentina or in South America. And we get all these German scientists and engineers and secrets and everything. Operation Paperclip, that was only part of it. Thousands upon thousands of the German scientists, technicians, engineers came here. NASA, the entire German rocket program was picked up from Peenemünde and put down in Cape Canaveral. Everybody there was Germans. The guy in charge was not Werner von Braun, as most people think. He was the chief engineer. The guy in charge, Dr. Kurt Debus, he was in charge of the German space program. So we just outmuscled the Russians because the Russians were trying to get as many as they could too, but we got the majority here. And I firmly believe the quid pro quo was you leave Hitler live out his life quietly and we give you everything.
And so were people trying to come after? We're trying to, because you did think people would trying to track it down. Because like you said, wasn't it immediately after his suicide or whatever purported suicide that people were saying it was actually did not occur, and that it was like it was pretty instantly where people were saying he actually did not commit suicide, correct?
Right. And when I talk to people about this, they'll say, well, why didn't they go after him? And I say, well, who's they? Israel. Why Israel? Well, because there was no such place as Israel in 1945. That was 1948. Well, how about the Mossad? Well, if you don't have Israel, you don't have the Mossad. And then they ask, well, why didn't the U.S.? And that's when I think about the quid pro quo. We gave them Hitler to live in peace. Not only we left it settle, but it would have taken an absolute army invasion because Perón was getting so damn much money, because a ton of money, billions of dollars, went down to Argentina. And Perón was getting his palm crossed, so he wasn't going to let anybody bother the guys he was keeping track of. So it would have taken an armed invasion. And by that point in time, people were tired of war. Germany capitulated in May of 45, Japan on my birthday, the 2nd of September. That was my 6th birthday. I saw all the parades going by in Chicago down North Avenue. I thought, damn, there's a birthday party and a half for me.
Yeah, I bet, huh?
So, so many guys got down there. The aeronautical engineer who designed the Focke-Wulf FW-190, Germany's best fighter plane, he escaped to Argentina with 50 of his aeronautical engineers. They designed airplanes for the South American governments, including a jet fighter, not a fighter jet. That's a new liberal buzzword. They've been jet fighters for 80 years. Anyhow, he designed a jet fighter called a pulque, which is native language to them guys, or arrow. And if you look at a pulque, you think you're looking at a MiG-15. It's exactly like that. Also, I was watching a video they gave me from the early 50s, I believe it was, where they were showing all the different types of airplanes in Perón's Air Force. They had a hangar mounted up on top of a camera mounted on top of a hangar, and the planes would taxi by. And this is that kind of airplane. Then I looked, what the hell? It's a flying wing. Who did the flying wing? The Horten brothers in Germany. They did the first jet-powered stealth flying wing bomber that was operational in 1944. What the hell is it doing down here? Well, the one brother, Reimer Horten, moved to Argentina, and he was designing airplanes for various South American air forces. And I met his grandson, and now his grandson and his son are members of Shark Hunters. I'm trying to get somebody to pop a few bucks to go down and do a TV special, because they said they'd be happy to sit for interviews.
And did they have you met people who have firsthand accounts of seeing Hitler in Argentina?
Oh yeah, there was a lady down there. But I have a good friend down there, Dr. Mario Marascotti. He was the former head of the Atomic Energy Commission in Argentina. He and his wife, this couple, upscale people. The husband died. And so Dr. Marascotti introduced me to her. I interviewed her, and I've got it on tape. She and her husband were celebrating their honeymoon 1952 in Patagonia. I forget the name of the hotel she was in, but it was it was on an island in Lake Nahuelhuapi. Beautiful, huge, big freshwater lake. And she and her husband were having dinner, and she poked her husband and pointed at somebody across the room. And she says, that guy looks like Adolf Hitler. And her husband looked, he says, yep, that guy is Adolf Hitler. Others saw him there. There's no question about it. Until 1955. That's when the bloody revolution came, and Juan Perón was put out of power the hard way. So all the Germans down there they had to scramble and either go deeper into Argentina or go into other countries, such as Mangala.
Yeah. And where was Hitler purported to have died? What country? Is it Argentina, or did he move as well?
Bolivia. No, Bolivia.
He died in Bolivia. And how do you know that? Like, what have you seen that shows? Are there people in Bolivia who saw him there as well?
Yeah, one of our members, who goes by the name of Michael Lehman, which is not his real name, he was born in Berlin at the beginning of the war. His mother was good friends with Eva Braun and also good friends with Magda Goebbels. And when the war ended, he was, I think, 5. And his father disappeared. And his mother took Michael and went to Bolivia, where they owned a sugar plantation. And one time when he was a teenager, he fell off his horse, broke his arm, knocked himself out. When he woke up, the doctor was setting his arm, and it was Joseph Mengele who was setting his arm. So, yeah, they was there. And in January of 62 or 63, I've got it written down somewhere. No, that I got it. My office looks like an explosion in the public library. January of 62, I think it was. He came to the estancia where Michael lived. By then, Michael was 20, 21 years old. And Hitler had to come there to meet with the manager of that estancia, who had been his commanding officer in World War I, Fritz Wiedemann. So everybody had up along the driveway, and he came by in a wheelchair, and everybody had to do the what they call the Hitler Gruß, the arm in the air. And Hitler was there with Fritz Wiedemann for some time and then left again. I don't know, maybe he's picking up some papers, maybe, who knows. And a month later, 12th of February, I believe it was, Hitler died.
And that's in 1962? 62.
Yep.
And do you have any indication of where he was buried? Or what happened there?
How's the weather where you're at?
Not that nice. I'm in New York City.
I swore I wouldn't tell anybody.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let people look into that how they please. Are there any photographs? Have there ever been any photographs of him?
Him down there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got some photos taken in 1947. There was a very, very upscale, beautiful hotel down there, the Hotel Eden, in northern Argentina, in the town called of La Falda in Cordova province. Beautiful place. And it was owned by a German couple, Walter and Ida Eichhorn. Eichhorn is the German word for acorn. And when Hitler was climbing the political ladder in Berlin in those days, in Munich, they sent him a lot of money. So when he moved down there in 45 to Patagonia, he came up. Oh, this Coca-Cola is really getting to me. This ain't coffee. This is Coke.
Okay. Yeah, a little late for coffee.
Yeah, and I'm hiccuping and burping.
That's okay.
So he went up to visit them in 47. We've got 4 pictures of him meeting with them. They're sitting around a table, and the other guys might have been having coffee, but Hitler was having tea. We know Hitler did not like coffee. He said, "Tee is schön, Kaffee ist Gift. Tea is sweet, coffee is poison."
Okay. It's
He was a vegan
yeah, he was a vegan,
also.
right? Yeah.
Yep. And he was the first world leader to outlaw vivisection. For those of your listeners who don't know, that is cutting open animals while they're alive without anesthetic to see how all the parts are working. It's a horrible thing. And he outlawed that. He was the first world leader to outlaw vivisection.
Interesting. And so I guess you seem to have a decent amount of evidence to support your claim. Why are people so generally hesitant to believe something like this? Because it doesn't seem so far-fetched, but it does seem like an odd kind of third rail type of thing where people are like, no, he died in the bunker. Like, is it just the fact that the amount of people who would have been required? I mean, obviously, when you say the thing with the U.S. government, you go, okay, well, that would be obviously a massive scandal if the U.S. government allowed him to just, even retroactively, allowed him to just live out the rest of his days in exchange for some rockets or scientists or whatnot. But is that just the main issue, you think?
That's a good question. There are theories out the door about why. As I was a kid, like I say, I was a kid in the war years. And in the beginning, we were fighting against Germany, Italy, and Japan. Then after we got to a certain point where it was obvious that the Allies were going to win, then we were fighting Hitler, Tojo, and Mussolini, not the people anymore, because they were going to rebuild the countries, and the people were nice, the leaders were bad. Well, we know what happened to Mussolini. He got machine gunned and hung up the heels in a gas station. We know what happened to Tojo. He shot himself, didn't kill himself. The U.S. nursed him back to health and then hanged him. Why do that? Just let the guy die. Yeah. But Hitler, worst of all, they couldn't admit that they let him get away. Well, we got 2 out of 3. No, that only works in baseball. If you're hitting 60, 600, you're good. But 2 out of 3, no. And there was so much hatred between Hitler and Stalin and Stalin knew he wasn't dead, but Stalin couldn't admit to the world that he missed him, because Berlin was surrounded by the Red Army, with a couple exceptions, a couple of points that they didn't seal up until too late. And his best crack troops under, what the hell was his name, Marshal Zhukov, were tasked to find Hitler's body. And after a week and a half, 2 weeks of looking, Zhukov had to report to Stalin, we have found no body. That's on the back of the book. Zhukov said, we have found no corpse that can be Hitler's. General Beadle Smith, Eisenhower's chief of staff, said no human being can say conclusively that Hitler's dead. The Secretary of State said, based on the evidence we have, no insurance company in America would pay a claim on Hitler. And Stalin also told them Hitler was gone. He was alive.
Yeah. And nobody tried to come after him because I imagine there must have been some cohort of people who maybe had an inkling of where he might be.
Yes, but remember, I said there was kind of a quid pro quo. Right. Plus, it would have taken armed invasion. You couldn't sneak in. Now, they snuck in 5 Mossad agents to kidnap Eichmann.
Yeah.
Okay. Eichmann didn't have any money. I read where he's the author of the final solution. No, he wasn't. He was a lieutenant colonel. Lieutenant colonels don't have that kind of clout. He was in charge of moving people around on the rails. And in Argentina, he was broke. He worked at 3 different companies, several years here, several years there. And his last one, he was working on the assembly line at Mercedes of Argentina. He had to ride 3 hours out to the plant, and then 3 hours back on a bus. So he was middle-aged by then. When he got back, he was tired, he was beat, and so 5 young guys had no trouble jumping this old man. And his 2 sons, the oldest son especially, were so upset over this because it was illegal. You can't go into somebody's country and kidnap them without permission. And so they started flying the swastika flag along with the Argentine flag over their house. Their house was a little concrete block looking thing about 30 by 30 feet, and that was their house. And the oldest son took to wearing the swastika armband in protest. And I was there. I think somebody wrote a book about it, the house on Garibaldi Street.
Yeah. I
was there. The house is no longer there. It's been torn down. Funny how they tear down things that you're not supposed to go see. And there's a building on either side of that property and a chain link fence across front and back. There's nothing but rubble there. But he was on the weekends selling fruit juices down at the marinas to make ends meet because he was poor.
Yeah. And you say that they tear down buildings that they don't want you to see. Are there other examples of that that you've encountered, kind of going down this path of Hitler's escape?
Not so much there. No, not so much there. Europe, yeah. But down there, no. In my second book, Hitler and the Secret Alliance, where we explain how tens of thousands of Germans and some Italian, Croatians, etc., were able to get out of Europe and live out their lives down in Argentina. In the book, we show pictures of the houses where they lived back in the late 40s, early 50s, and then we show photographs of the house today. And one of them was backyard to backyard with one of Perón's mansions. They were all friends.
Yeah.
And three Luftwaffe guys went down there who were not wanted war criminals. Adolf Galland and Hans Ulrich Rudel, probably the greatest pilot ever, and then Werner Bambach, who was a bomber pilot. They went down the Argentine Air Force. And if you remember the Falkland Island War, the only part of the Argentine military that really distinguished itself was their Air Force. But then Bambach.
And how did
after
Hitler,
the war was?
Yeah, how did Hitler? And we're going to open the phone. We're going to open the phone lines very shortly because I'm sure a lot of people have some questions for you. But how did Hitler get out of? Because he must have been the most high-profile person on Earth at that time. Do you have any insight into how he managed to get out of there?
Great question. A month, 2.5 months after the war ended, the German submarine U-530 surrendered in Mar del Plata, which is south of Buenos Aires. And 8 days later, U-977 surrendered at Mar del Plata. And people were all excited. Oh, Hitler must have been on these boats. Hitler was on U-530. There were two guys that wrote books that read an awful lot like mine after mine came out. And they both said that Hitler escaped on board U-530. First off, Hitler was incredibly claustrophobic. He also got seasick at the drop of a hat. So to think he's going to spend 2 months in a stinky steel tube, ridiculous. Also, U-530 was 3 days out to sea when Hitler was still seen in Berlin. 530 was on a combat mission. It was sent to sink ships in New York Harbor. They got to New York Harbor, fired at some ships. Fortunately, he missed. Then they got word that the war was over, so they decided they didn't want to surrender to any of the Allies. A couple of the guys on board had relatives in Chile, so they decided they would go down around the bottom of South America. But when they got down into the southern oceans, the weather was so bad, they were fighting heavy waves, used up too much fuel, so they decided, okay, we'll go back and surrender at Mar del Plata. Nobody knew about this until we reported it. Germany had built 3 giant airplanes, the Ju-390. They only built 3 of them, and they numbered them V1, V2, and V3, which had nothing to do with the rockets. That was just their numbers. V3 was never completed. The war ended. V2 was 3 meters longer than V1, which gave it more fuel capacity. That's how he got out. He left, and we know this for a fact. We have documented charts. They left Norway, and this thing had a 7,000 or 8,000 mile range. So they flew down. They didn't have enough range to make Argentina. So we have a hand-drawn chart that shows where they landed in Uruguay, near the little village of Paysandú. And so we went to Paysandú, big restaurant called Der Deutschmann, another restaurant called the Edelweiss House, all the Spanish names. We found the area where the plane was supposed to have landed. We found the wooded area where they put the the rangefinder. And we talked to some of the ladies in the area. There was a German settlement built there between the wars, Colonia, 19 April or something like that. But by the time we got there, the men had all died off and only the old widows were there. And they all heard the plane land. So we went to the big plane, about the size of a 757, on 6 engines. So we went to the house where the daughter of the estancia owner lived. And I introduced myself, told him what I was doing, what I was looking for. And this nice lady was answering all my questions, soft questions, until I get to ease the person, until I get to an important question. So all of a sudden I popped up, what about the big plane that landed on her father's estancia? And her and her husband both, I got the nervous little, oh, tee-hee, ha-ha, tee-hee. And then she said that happened before she was born. She was born 3 years after it happened. But it never happened, she said. So how could it be 3 years after it happened? So we talked for a while, and she said, well, there was a report of a plane that landed in the middle of the night. And even the prefect of police, which is like the top cop in the whole county down there, he was called out, but it was only a crop duster. You don't call out the top cop for a crop duster, and a crop duster is not flying at 2 o'clock in the morning because they have no instruments. So another one of our members is still a deep cover spook. Still not sure who he works for. I think he's still working for Odessa, but he followed the history of that airplane, and it got moved up to Paraguay, and it was flying until the middle 1960s, he said. So the plane lived until then. Excuse me. Need more Coke.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola. I know you're just getting an overview here on your show.
Of course, of course.
We vetted this 6 ways from Sunday. There's no question he got away. No question he lived down there for 10 years at this place called Inalco, right on the lake. Inalco is a large manor house. It was built by Mercedes of Argentina in the closing months of the war, allegedly for Western recreation for their executives, to go fishing or to skiing. It's a magnificent place. When you land there, you got misdirected and you landed in Munich. Everything is Bavarian style.
Yeah.
Um,
And was it like that at all before they got there? Like was there any sort of community of like German community there
it
before?
was a tiny little.
Like, how was the
It was
decision
a tiny
made?
little.
Yeah, I guess how was the decision made specifically for South America and countries in South America? Was that just who they knew was most sympathetic?
Several reasons. First off, Juan Perón was very pro-German,
Okay.
and Argentina only declared war against Germany 2 weeks before the German surrender, and only under heavy pressure from the United States. Like I say, I was a kid in the war years, and I remember a movie that Walt Disney came out with. I think it was 1953 or 43 or 44, called Three Amigos. It's about three birds. One is Donald Duck. One is Jose Carioca, who was a multicolored macaw from South America, Brazil. And the other one was Panchito, who was a pistol-packing parrot from Mexico. And the theme of this, although it was made like a nice kiddie movie, the theme is North and South America can get along and fight off anybody else.
Right.
So the reason they picked Trilogy, the Battle of the Falkland Islands, 1915, not the one in 81, 1915. The German cruiser squadron under Graf von Spee tangled with the British cruiser squadron. I don't remember the name of the commanding admiral, but a lot of the British ships got sunk, people killed. All the German ships were sunk except the SMS Dresden. They were one knot faster than the British ships, so they escaped. They went through the Magellan Passage, and on board was a young Oberleutnant, or say, Canaris, who later became head of their spy group. He was Admiral Canaris later. But when they went through there, every time they'd see a hidden cove or a hidden harbor, he would jot it down. He would draw diagrams. You know how thorough the Germans are. Yeah. And he finally got around. They called them U-Plätze, which unbekannt Plätze, which means unknown place. They got around to Chile, and they finally had to scuttle the ship because it was wrecked. He went by horseback over the Andes in the dead of winter, and when he came down on the Argentine side, there was this little town, San Carlos de Bariloche. And when he finally got back to Germany, he let everybody know. And Dönitz, toward the end of the war, Dönitz said, "We have found an impenetrable Shangri-La for the Führer." And so many people jumped to the conclusions, Antarctica. No, it ain't Antarctica. It's Patagonia. So during the war, there were German spy ships, 90-ton sailboats, yawl rigged, if you want to know about sailboats.
Okay.
And they were wooden, so they didn't bounce up on radar. They were coming and going into Golfo San Matias, and up in the northwestern corner of Golfo San Matias was a cove called Caleta de los Loros, and my Spanish pronunciation is probably terrible, but it means parrot. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, Harry. Can we pause that for a second? We just got a call right now. I'm gonna pick up a first call if you don't mind. Just give me
fire away.
Yeah, one moment, please. Hello. Thank you for your patience. You are on Low Value Mail. What's up?
What's up? It's Conspiracy Extremist.
How's it going? All right, you're on with Harry. Harry, go ahead, caller.
Can you hear me all right? It's Conspiracy Extremist.
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Hear you fine.
Hey, what's up? Hey, so I got one question, but first I got to say, anyone who can go see Danny live, go do it. He's funnier than Joe Rogan. I saw Joe Rogan last year, and he's much better, so
Thanks,
go see him. So my question is, the only thing that I've really heard that is allegedly solid proof that, trying to refute the fact that, he may have gone to Argentina is they claim that he has dental records. Now, I know you said that, about the body and whatnot, that they're just lying. So is that the same thing with their claiming of having his dental records?
Right. Remember, first there was the skull with the bullet hole in it, and that was supposed to be Hitler's skull piece until a forensic pathologist found out that that was the skull of a young woman. So no matter what you think of Hitler, he was not a cross-dresser. So that got shoved to the side. Then along comes the dental records. Well, now Hitler's personal dentist was grabbed up by the Soviets, and he had dental records left. But the Soviets helped him to remember what the dental records were supposed to be. The three guys who were allegedly eyewitnesses, Guncha, Linge, and Kempka, they were all majors, Sturmbannführer, I think it was, in the SS. Guncha was Hitler's adjutant, Linge was his valet, and Kempka was his driver and head of the motor pool. Two of them heard the gunshot, they said. Remember, they're being interrogated by the Soviets. Two said they heard the shot. One said he smelled the gunpowder. They rushed in at different times, 2 hours apart. And two of them said that Eva Braun was sitting on the right side of the sofa. Hitler was sitting next to her. And her dress was wet because when Hitler shot himself, he apparently knocked over a flower vase, and that got her wet. The third guy said that Eva Braun was laying on the sofa and Hitler was sitting in the chair opposite her. Well, that's a hell of a mistake. Plus, the story goes that Hitler shot himself in the right temple. But yet we see a picture of dead Hitler with a bullet hole right there. That ain't the right temple. And there was a guy named Joseph Silip, with his cousin, who grew up in the same area of Austria that he did, spoke with the same inflection or accent, whatever. And he got trained by the SS. And by the way, Joe, training's over. Pop. So the jawbone is phony as well.
And so, were there photos from the? Are there photos from the bunker of like locating it? Like, are there any purported photos of his dead body? Because you say there was a photo of him shot in the front. Yeah,
that's supposed to be him, but it ain't. It was his cousin Joseph Silip. Everybody had body doubles back then, probably even today.
Yeah.
So if he shot himself in the right temple, the blood spatter would have been off to his left, yet the wall on the right side is full of blood spatter. How do you do that? You shoot yourself here and the blood goes that way? No, it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So it's
interesting.
It's a story that has to be maintained for one reason or another, but he did not clip himself in the bunker. He died 75 years old. He was. We have, this book has so damn much proof in it, including dozens of FBI files. They knew he was gone.
Yeah, they knew, and I guess they just obviously, as you say, could not do anything. Anything else there?
No, yeah, I'm going to buy your book, man. This is really fascinating. So thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. And thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Mike.
Now, I'll tell you what, before you get off the air, we guarantee it. If you don't like it, send it back for your money back. We've sold over 55,000 books over the years. You know how many have come back? Not one damn book. Not one damn book.
Not a lot of people have that kind of guarantee. Okay, we're going to take another call. One moment, please.
Get off the air.
Hello.
We guarantee it. If you don't like it, send it back.
What's up?
Your money back.
Yo, can you turn on your speaker? Hey. All right, you're on with Harry. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, what's going on? This is Mark from 2 weeks ago.
What's up, Mark?
I really appreciate. Good. Really appreciate tonight's guest, Harry. It's great to talk to you. Thank you for your service. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on Hitler's financiers and how that factored into his escape. If you think, you know, as someone who served in the military yourself, the U.S. government had a hand in A, financing Hitler, and then B, helping organize, let's say, a de facto colonization of South America. And yeah, are there any German investment interests in South America currently today that might indicate that the Germans just, you know, transplanted themselves?
You've done some research. Yeah, they transplanted themselves. Now, what participation, that's not the area I researched, but in South America, hell yes, zillions of them. Right after the turn of the last century, about 1905 or so, Argentina wanted to upscale themselves. So they were giving huge tracts of land away to Western Europeans, primarily Germany, some Italians, but they'd give hundreds of square miles to some guy to raise cattle, sheep, whatever. But they had indigenous people down there. Dare I use the word Indian? They were the locals, and they didn't even bother going to war with these guys. They had a guy, General Rojas, who had an army with him, and if somebody said, "Hey, over such and such place, there's a whole band of Indians, and we don't want them on our property," so Rojas would just go kill them all, and that was the end of it. So before World War I, even, there was a large German presence down there. And in between the wars, the Germans down there were still patriotic to the homeland, das Heimat. And like I say, the Eichhorn family was supporting Hitler. We've got pictures of their hotel, which was out in the middle of nowhere, 400 miles from Buenos Aires. They had huge, big radio towers. They could pick up the radio stations from Europe, and they would pick up Hitler's speeches. And I've got pictures of the courtyard with hundreds of people on folding chairs listening to Hitler's speeches. And I just got a report from many, many years ago. One guy who wanted to sabotage was Che Guevara after the war ended, but that's another whole story.
Sabotage what exactly?
He wanted to sabotage the radio towers at the Eden Hotel.
Oh, gotcha. Well, okay.
Yeah.
And does this hotel still stand today?
Yes, but it's no longer in use. I've been there. They have a guided tour. And you're supposed to stay with the tour guide, and every time you turn around, where's Cooper? Where the hell is Cooper? Oh, there's a stairway. Let's go. Click, 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 taking pictures up here. Here's some room that says no passar, which I think means the same as Eingang Verbot, which means Harry should come in here and take pictures.
Sure.
So they have formal dining and dancing every couple of months, but it's all it's gone to hell in a handbasket. It would take, oh God.
And what is the conceit of this tour currently? Like, what is the theme of this tour? Is it just like an ancient, like
the tours at that hotel? They're just touring a beautiful place. That
it's just an old hotel. It has nothing to do with the history behind the people.
Right. That's the hotels there, or the hotel tours. when I bring tours down there, we go down there to see everything that had to do with the Third Reich, same as our tours in Europe. So in between the wars, the patriotism for Germany was still very, very strong. And I just found out that up until about maybe 20 or so years ago, the Argentine Constitution said that, oh, geez, even my people are bringing in. The Argentine Constitution said that they would only accept from Western European roots. I have a friend down there who's a retired lieutenant commander from the Argentine Navy. He's a doctor, and I was talking to him a couple of years ago. I said, you know, Eduardo, I don't see any Hispanic-looking people here. And he laughed. He said, that's because they're all German and Italian stock and some English.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right. I have another question just to wrap up my call. So we're talking about Hitler, but there has been a lot of evidence to show that Rudolf Hess was behind a lot of the decisions as far as what the Third Reich did, and even wrote Mein Kampf, among other things. I recently learned from Joseph P. Farrell that Rudolf Hess possibly had a body double who took his place in prison. Is there any evidence to support that Rudolf Hess also went down to South America? Has he been seen in Hitler's party down there?
Interesting you mentioned Dr. Farrell. He was a member of Shark Hunters for a long time. We have found absolutely zero evidence that Rudolf Hess went down there. If I can digress a little bit, one of our members, Charles Hyam, who was a great biographer, he did the biography of Errol Flynn and the Queen and everything, and nobody wanted him to do it because he always dug everything up. And he was all excited. We were on the phone quite.
Oh, we got a little. Come on. Did we lose you there, Harry? Sorry, everybody. He's got not the best connection. Oh, no.
As Sam Tripoli likes to say, this is how you know we're getting into the deep stuff.
No, it's he's got a bad. He's just his internet hasn't been very good. Harry. All right. Well, we might have lost Harry here because he's totally frozen right now. I hope we didn't lose him. Oh, there he is.
So much miracles.
We're back. We're back. So yeah. So let's take off from Rudolf Hess because we had a little tech.
Okay.
Text.
So on, Mike.
Snafu.
Mark. Sorry.
Yeah.
So where are we?
Mark, where did we leave off here?
Okay. With Mark, and we're talking about Rudolf Hess.
Yeah, Rudolf Hess, exactly.
Right. Okay. This member of ours, Charles Hyam, who wrote the biographies of so many people that didn't want him to, he was all excited. We were on the phone quite a bit. He had gotten some files, records that weren't supposed to be released, and he had written a book that proved absolutely that Rudolf Hess was ordered over to the Great Britain by Hitler. He was not a man a stolen airplane. And we had in our files also 2 Polish pilots who were flying for the RAF scrambled because this airplane was coming over and it wasn't supposed in the middle of the night. They went up right behind him with 2 fighters. They were just about to push the button on him, and they got the excited call from below, abort. They had just found out it was Rudolf Hess, and they didn't want to shoot him down. They wanted him to bail out where he was supposed to, or crash, whichever, over the estate of the Duke of some damn thing or another, who was cousin to the king, because Hitler kept making peace proposals to Churchill, and Churchill kept saying, hell no. So that if he could get word to the king would maybe enter into a ceasefire. But the British MI6 had found out about this, and they wanted to grab Hess when he landed, and they did. And they stuck him in. And Chaim called me one evening. I'll never forget. He was all excited. He had everything bundled up, ready to go to his publisher, his manuscript, all the backup documentation. It was going out in the mail the next morning. And doggone if he didn't wake up dead the next morning, and everything was gone.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As for Rudolf Hess in South America, I've never heard any evidence that he was.
All right. Anything else, Mark?
No, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate the chance to ask you some questions, and I will also be buying your book and maybe even asking you to join me on my podcast.
Oh, he's got a great podcast.
Have a good night.
You should definitely go on there.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Incidentally, you go to sharkhunters.com and or sharkhunters@sharkhunters.com, our email. Say you heard us on the show, and I'll send you the current issue of our magazine. Not a newsletter; it's a magazine, online, no charge.
Excellent. All right, let's take another call. One moment, please. No, let's try one more here. Hello, Yo, what's up, Rafe? One moment, and hold on. All right, Rafe, you're on with Harry. Go ahead.
All right, so I was a little late to the show. Harry is your name?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So my only question is, what about? So, like, you've been talking about different things, but what about like the CIA and the FBI working together to do certain things together, like over in Guatemala and Venezuela, to name a few. What do you think about that?
I don't know a hell of a lot about CIA ops in Central America. That
do you have
anything
anything specific, Rafe, that you can point to? Is that
well, I mean, just the current Venezuela it's not the economy of Venezuela is on the water, it's underwater right now, and it's gonna be bad. That's why there's a shitload of Venezuelans coming into America right now.
Yeah, but that all took place way after the World War II, and that's not in my area of expertise.
Okay, all right, for sure.
Sorry.
I got a question about World War II as well. So how high are the percentages do you think that? Obviously people went to Brazil and Argentina and whatnot.
America.
Do you think Hitler actually went anywhere?
Yeah.
Were they what?
Yeah. I guess you missed the beginning of the show. Yeah. He went to Argentina and then died in Bolivia.
Correct.
Is that you guys think Hitler died in Bolivia or went to Argentina and then died in Bolivia?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, Rafe, I guess
I totally missed the beginning of the show.
Yeah, we already covered that all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what about what's his name? Getting found dead in the Brazilian jungle.
Who's that?
What's his name?
I do not.
He was the third in command. I can't remember his name.
No, the third in command was Kamler.
Yeah.
Kamler.
Well, who was the dude that died in Brazil, and then his he got DNA was found a couple years later?
Bormann.
Rudolph? Was that Rudolph?
No, Bormann.
Martin Bormann.
Did Brazil take a lot of Nazis?
Not so much in Brazil, and Uruguay not so much either, but Paraguay, Chile, Argentina was the big one.
The big one.
Rafe is talking about Martin Bormann, I believe, because
There you go. Yeah.
okay, yeah, the so-called history says that he was killed in a firefight right near the main train station, and I've been there. And they dug, and they
In
never
Brazil?
found any.
Where
No.
was the train station? In what's that? Sorry.
In Berlin, not the
Berlin.
main train station.
Gotcha.
That's where history
Oh, in
says
Berlin,
that he
okay.
got shot dead.
Yeah.
So, my first time in Buenos Aires, I went to the Plaza Hotel, which was the hotel back in the day, and it's still upscale to the max. And I went to the
It's like a
manager.
4-star and shit? Like it's like official?
Yeah, it's a good hotel.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I went to the manager, Senora Rodriguez. I identified myself, told her what I was researching, and I said, my research indicates that Martin Bormann stayed here in this hotel for 2 years after the war. And without batting an eye, she said, yeah, in room 740, the presidential suite. I said, what, you knew about it? She said, everybody knows about it.
And so there was just
Oh,
everybody
dude.
kind of just knew about this down there, and I guess it was just localized
Yeah,
to
it
there.
wasn't much communication back and forth back in those days.
Right. So
And
that was just
so we're pretty certain that Bormann had stomach cancer and that Mengele was trying to help him, but in about 1958 he died from his stomach cancer and was buried there. Well, then somebody years later decided, well, let's look for Bormann again by the train station in Berlin, where we dug already and he wasn't there, but let's dig again. And doggone it, they found his body again there. But they couldn't explain why in the little niches and crannies in his bones they found red clay that only comes from Paraguay. I've been to Paraguay. The whole damn place is red clay. Cars are covered with red dust.
No, it is. You're right on that.
Yeah. So
and
Bormann got away too.
What oh fuck. I had a good question. I totally forgot it. Don't smoke weed, kids. Okay.
Don't smoke weed. All right, I'm gonna let you go. I gotta pick up this call, but later, Rafe. I was ready for everybody. Okay, we got a call here. Hello. Fran from Simcoe County, Ontario, Canada. All right, Fran, you're on with Harry. Go ahead.
Hey, Mr. Cooper, this is a two-tiered question. The first one's for you. You have a trilogy out. Can I purchase that on Amazon?
Yep.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Sure, you can go to Amazon. Hitler in Argentina, Hitler and the Secret Alliance, and Hitler's spy web in South America.
Okay, amazing. The second question is for Danny Paulchuk, dailypaulchuk.ca.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're coming to Hamilton, correct?
I will be in Hamilton, Ontario, April 19th and 20th.
Amazing. I'll see you. There's my two-tiered question. And this has been a great podcast. I love to hear it. And a great guest, Mr. Cooper. You're great, and I can't wait to read your book or your trilogy.
All three.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Later, Frank.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking my call. Bye.
No problem. I have a question because we've been talking a lot about the Argentinian government. Have they, what to extent have they acknowledged or not acknowledged any of this?
Adolf who? World War what?
Right. I mean, because it's a known thing at this point that they obviously were taking in. You know, there's so much evidence, but
yeah.
Like, are they just like that's old history? Do they deny it to some degree?
No, they don't want anything about it. And I'll go into something else I'm probably not supposed to, but
this is the show to do it.
Well, what the hell? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
I hope nobody shoots me. After an angel down to Puerto Coy, put him ashore. The captain said he was going to go up to a few hundred kilometers south of Buenos Aires, put his crew ashore, send his boat out to sea, and pull the plug.
Sorry. Just you paused there for a second there. Who was this?
Who is which? There was Don Angel. I told you about Don Angel Alcazar de Villar, and Martin Bormann.
Gotcha.
An angel helped him get down on a submarine.
Gotcha. Okay.
So about 6, 7, 8 months ago, some old fisherman, Petiti, he got an anomaly as he was chugging along, and it's been researched, and they sent down ROVs, and it is a sunken German U-boat. And there ain't supposed to be no German U-boats there, and I believe that's the one they rode.
And any idea who sunk it? Who was kind of trying to sink German U-boats?
They scuttled it themselves.
Oh, just to hide it.
And then they merged in with the German population in, I can't remember the name, but it's off Necochea. It's the damnedest situation. There was a group put together, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but with two leaders. You never have two leaders, but we had two leaders. So leader A fired leader B and some of the crew. Then leader B fired leader A and some of those people. So now it's a pissing match, and nobody's getting nothing done. But there are other German U-boats scuttled in those waters.
And what specifically, because I know a lot of your work just revolves around U-boats, right? Like, is it, are you like a U-boat historian, or is it what exactly is the?
I am the world's #1 historian when it comes to U-boats.
Gotcha.
And that's just fact. Because there's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys. They do it part-time or whatever. I do this from 4:30 in the morning till 8 at night for 41 years, and I knew all the great skippers. When I'd go back and forth to Germany, it wasn't to interview somebody, it was just to hang out with friends. Otto Kretschmer, the top submarine commander of the war. I studied him when I was in high school, and then I met him. We became good friends, he and I and his wife. They said I was part of the family. I had a sleeping room in his house. He gave me history. Reinhard Hardagen, the guy that sank the first ship in American waters. I've been to his house so many times. He was so damn wealthy. His house Hans-Georg Hess became my best friend in Germany. 21-year-old kid, commander of a combat submarine. I knew all these guys, and they gave me their history because we gave them back their pride. We told the stories honestly, not dirty Nazis and all that propaganda crap. They were decent, honorable young men, just like I was when I joined the Air Force, fighting for their country. The people in charge, that's a whole different story. But the guys who went into combat, they're just normal human beings.
And what's how do the current, because you obviously make a lot of trips to Europe, you go a lot to South America. Do you get any running any kind of like afoul of the governments currently? Like, do they know kind of what you're getting up to? Do they take any issue with it? Do you have any friction involved there?
Yeah, they know. Up until about 5, 6 years ago, I found this out that the Verfassungsschutz, which is the constitutional protective police, they always had people on me. And when I'd get back, he'd call me up. Hey, you remember seeing this couple at such and such a restaurant? Yeah, well, they were Verfassungsschutz. I remember clearly another time we were in this restaurant, Regensburg. We were in Regensburg, and there were about a dozen of us sitting around the table because everybody scattered to do grocery shopping. And we were there for an hour or so having lunch. And this guy at the next table was reading the newspaper. He never turned the damn page. He sat there reading the same page of the newspaper for an hour. I mean, It's not a very good spy.
Yeah, not the greatest. And they just kind of, you think they just want to keep because you bring like large groups.
Right. Well, we are not. We are, history. That's it. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, who we call the Spitlickers, has said that I'm a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm a Republican. Ronald Reagan presented me the Presidential Medal of Merit. He didn't think I was a Nazi. The 4 Medal of Honor winning American the submarine commanders were members. One of them sat in my living room, Admiral Flucky, with Medal of Honor, 4 Navy Crosses, the commander-in-chief of the Soviet Navy, who was a member until he died about 6 months ago. He didn't know he was a Nazi. So we go on history trips. Nobody does goose stepping. I tell everybody ahead of time, this is history. You can't wear shirts that have a swastika or an SS runes. You go to jail for that over there. So we're there for history, pure and simple. Was Hitler a good guy? Was Hitler a bad guy? What did this guy do? Where did this guy have combat? What did this guy sink? That's what we zero in on.
Right. Let me take another call. One moment, please.
Sure.
Actually, we just... here we go. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. One moment, please.
Oh, hey, it's Travis McNasty. Let me just redo my headphone setup.
You sound okay to me. All
right. Yeah, no, I'm here.
You're on with Harry. Go ahead.
I am here to ask Harry. I watched Das Boot like a few months ago, and I was wondering how realistic of a depiction that was of kind of the German submarine fleet.
Well, first off, let me compliment you. You called it Das Boot, not Das Boot. You're right. It's Das Boot.
Thank you.
There's many of the rest of them. This one was awesome. It's built around U-96 under command of Heinrich Lehmann Willenbruch, who was a member of Shark Hunters. He did not get killed like the guy in the movie. And the guy in the movie that got hit in the face with the oily rag, that was Günther, what the hell was his name? Buchheim. And I was in Germany 1988 was my first time there, and the film had just come out, and the U-boaters were all, they hate it, and everything. Well, you pin them down, and they'll tell you it's an incredibly great movie, but they don't like Buchheim. So was it accurate? Yeah, very accurate. It was a hard life for those guys. And they build them so hard, and there was a handle sticking down from a crank and hit me right there. Jesus, that buckle your knees. But they had no wardroom for the guys to eat. They ate at their bunks. They hot bunked. That means there was 2 men to every bunk. One guy sleeping, the other guy's working. And huh?
If I may interrupt, was the crab outbreak another like realistic part of it? Because that sounds absolutely miserable.
Yeah, on some boats, yeah. When the Americans took over some of the Japanese boats, they were overrun with rats, and the rats were so tame they'd come up and they could pet the rats. Some of the Italian boats were loaded with cockroaches. And as for the outbreak of crabs, hey, it's a sexually transmitted disease. You know, one guy gets them, they jump all over the place, I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're sharing bunks too.
Of course, but yeah, those guys could go out for weeks at a time. Who knows? So I think that part was accurate too. The whole works was accurate. Hot, smelly, nasty. Unless you're up in the Arctic, then you're freezing your ass off.
Either way, though, you're not winning. Anything else there, caller?
Well, yeah. It might be like propaganda that I've heard from like these people who are like left wing and also kind of like pro military. They said that the submarine fleet of the Reich was actually not on board with Adolf Hitler's military tactics. Like these people in the submarines, they knew what they were doing, and they did not appreciate like kind of the imperial attitude of of Hitler's Germany. They kind of knew it was a bit of a losing proposition. Is that accurate, or have I just listened to some leftist propaganda?
You got to discount a lot of that propaganda, but they classed it as the Luftwaffe was for the aristocracy, the Navy was from the Kaiser. During its order, nobody could belong to any political party when they were in the Navy. And of course, the Nazi is not Nazi, it's a National Socialist German Workers' Party. And the salute was always this until July 1944, when Tom Cruise tried to blow up Adolf Hitler in the Führer bunker. No, in the Wolfschanze. We were there. I had a history tour there to the Wolfschanze. But until that time, it was always the military salute, not the right arm in the air, which incidentally is the Roman salute. Back in those days when two men would meet each other, they were the Hitler just idolized the Romans. He referred to his troops as his legions, and that they were carrying the signs that say, the banners that say Deutschland Wacker. 2,000 years ago, they said SPQR, Senatus Populus Quae Romanus, Senate and People of Rome. My number one hero in the whole world was Julius Caesar.
All right, anything else, caller?
That's it. No, that's very interesting. I'm glad to talk about it, talk about this, or get information straight from the historical expert on this.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, caller. All right, let's take another call. Thank you again for coming on here. I appreciate it. And
no problem.
Yeah,
I'm on a roll. I've had enough Coca-Cola here. I'm good for another 4 hours.
Oh, we don't have another 4 hours, but maybe we'll do a part 2 of this bad boy. 1 second, please. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with? JP. 1 moment, please. And all right, JP, you're on with Harry Cooper. Go ahead.
All right. I heard that like one of the main reasons that Hitler targeted the Jews or whatever was because they were like sexualizing the German youth and stuff, and doing like a bunch of crooked shit that's kind of going on in the United States now. With the, transgender movement and whatnot.
Do you have a question?
I was just wondering. Yeah, I was wondering, like, is there any truth to that, or?
I don't get into the political part of it. And as for the transgender, that doesn't interest me a bit. I figure I might try the gay lifestyle after I've banged every good-looking girl in the world twice.
All right, JP. I hope that answered it for you.
No, thank you.
All right, take care. Did you ever end up marrying one of those girls that you brought on your boat with you?
No, that's the damnedest thing. I finally ran out of money, came back to Chicago, had my boat in a marina on the chain of lakes, and I was young. I was 40-something, but I was making a lot of money. I was one of these guys. Hi, sir. This is Harry from your local neighborhood office. And I was running a phone room, made $4,000 or $5,000 a week. A lot of money in that.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah,
living on my boat in the summer, and I always had arm candy when I went into the office to talk to the owner, who was a good friend of mine. And this one girl especially, a redhead named Karen, I'd be talking to John, and I'd say, "Why is my finger sticking out?"
Yeah.
And there's no cup of coffee there. Just shake her head. So at the end of summer 1985, the manager asked me if I would take her for a ride on my speedboat. Okay, my buddy's employee, both hands on the wheel. We stopped for a drink, and oops, somebody's unhappy. We stopped for a drink. Both hands on the wheel. Stopped for another drink. One hand on the wheel. 2 weeks later, we were married.
2 weeks.
Years ago.
Man, the 80s were so much better than now. All right, let's take another call. Yeah. 1 moment, please. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with? Yeah, what's up, Kevin? Hold on, Kevin. Just let's patch you through to Harry, and then you can. All right, Kevin, you are on with Harry. Go ahead.
All right. I mean, this is the short one because I know you got a lot of questions and stuff, but this is definitely out there. So feel free to shoot it down. But I just find it suspicious that a lot of corporations in different, especially major corporations, seem to act like Nazis. And I honestly tried to do a report back when I was in college about how Walmart and some of these big companies intentionally destabilize small communities. So everyone has to be subservient to these big corporations. And do you think there's also a connection possibly to a lot of some of these big things that are running behind our government, like Google and stuff? Like, I didn't realize it till you were talking about it, but is Amazon literally like a reference to them hiding in South America? I don't know.
I don't know. That might be
just throwing it out there.
That might be a bit of a
obviously a stretch.
That might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I wanted to say something funny. Feel free to do whatever you want with that. So,
but
thanks
I
for
can't
answering my
comment
call.
on that, but it brings me back to something we should have touched on. I should have touched on earlier when Bormann brought Hitler down to South America. I think it was Bormann was the power behind the throne. I think we've seen he had the idea to mount a 1,000,000-man army and go back and do whatever. And then he got down there and he realized that that's not the hot setup. He had tens of billions of dollars. He founded 760 corporations, international corporations, which are still in business today.
Sorry, how many corporations did he found?
Is one of them.
He founded did you say 760 different corporations?
Yep. Many are still in super corporations.
Isn't Bayer, like most of our over-the-counter medicine was started by people who had to do with Nazis? IBM was started through Nazi stuff.
Bayer had always been a German product. That's part of the Sterling products. Bayer aspirin, that has been German forever. But they had something called IG Farben Industry, and they formed a coalition with Standard Oil. Standard Oil. When Frankfurt was being bombed, my friend who owned the marina where I met the manager there, he was a translator with the U.S. Army in the IG Farben building in Frankfurt. Everything around it was laid to rubble, but that building was not supposed to be bombed because there was a quid pro quo. The the two top guys of Standard Oil, William Stamps Farish and Walter C. Teagle, were brought up before Harry Truman when he was a senator. And if you remember your history, the Ploesti oil field raids, Germany was getting most of their refined fuel from Ploesti, Romania. And the first time the bombers, they got bad information. They came out of the clouds over farm command headquarters and got all shot all to hell. The third time they got the right coordinates and blew up the refineries. Well, Standard Oil was selling these refineries. They owned the refineries there. They were selling the refineries to the Hitler government for $23 million in gold. And State Department kept saying, you shouldn't do this because Germany doesn't have $23 million in gold except what they took from others. And so the bombers kept getting the wrong coordinates. And finally, Truman told these two guys, if you sell them to the Germans, I'll put you in prison. So they got the right coordinates, and the bombers blew the hell out of Ploesti oil fields. And then Standard Oil went to the U.S. government and said, you blew up our refineries. You got to pay for them. And we did.
Interesting.
Wasn't also, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but one last quick thing. Wasn't Henry Ford helping send parts to Germany to build their tanks?
Oh, hell yes. That's why the Jewish people wouldn't buy any Ford products. They bought Cadillacs because Henry Ford would send $50,000 check to Hitler on his birthday, and he had a picture of Hitler on his desk, Hitler had a picture of him, Henry Ford, on his desk, and there was a big Ford plant over in Germany, and they were making trucks and stuff for the Wehrmacht. Of course, nobody knew at the time that General Motors also owned a company over there, the Adam Opel Company. They were making tanks and armored cars for the Wehrmacht, and the guy in charge was a reserve lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy, and he received the from the German government. So I wrote to Roger Smith, the CEO of General Motors back then, and I told him what I'd found, and I asked for his comments. I got a letter back from one of his stooges saying, "I'm doing this research at great personal risk." So I guess he wasn't going to talk to me about it.
Yeah, interesting.
They say it makes sense to be suspicious of companies and stuff, because if they're doing that then, why wouldn't they be doing the same thing now? Anyway, Thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And Henry Ford wrote a book called The International Jew, which is also the name of my most recent comedy special. So you can go check that out.
Let me switch off again for a second here with Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Did you see the movie Boys from Brazil?
I have not seen that movie, no.
Oh, too bad. Anyhow, it shows where Dr. Mengele, going back to his old laboratories in the jungles of South America, that was not a Hollywood set. That's there. Henry Ford bought a big bunch of property up the Orinoco River where they had rubber trees, because he didn't want to buy rubber from India. He was going to get his own. So he had a whole town built up in, I think it was Massachusetts, had it assembled, shipped down there and up the Orinoco River, rebuilt it, and about that time, synthetic rubber was discovered, and so he just abandoned it. And those laboratories are still there. Everything is still there.
Interesting. I'll check out the movie. All right, we got another caller. One moment, please. Hello, Slav. Yo, one moment. All right, Slav, you are on with Harry. Go ahead.
Hey, Harry. My question was more focused more on the Eastern Hemisphere, less so much on the Southern American Hemisphere. First off, I also, you mentioned some earlier criticisms about the Southern Poverty Law Center. Yeah, they're also in the same ranks of who created the ADL and the
they're
NAACP.
Yeah,
it's all fake doctors, but my question was more so referring to Europe, and more so more Eastern Europe, and someone in the chat even they posted some money asking this question, but about the involvement of the Vatican, the Pope, and Catholicism in general. And I have a personal connection to this, because on my maternal side, we had a Polish Catholic family who, in 1939, they were living in the Soviet Union part, the Soviet occupied part of Poland. So they weren't affected during the 1939. But when Operation Barbarossa happened, so between 1931 and June 22nd of 1941, when Fritz invaded, the Soviet Union, he had because he was a local Catholic priest, he had sent out multiple correspondences to the Vatican and had received no response. And I've heard many rumblings and mentions and talks and texts referring to how the Vatican was facilitating the movement of not just the paintings and the gold and stolen valuables and goods, but also the movement of people, especially into South America, which was heavily Catholic. What do you have to say on?
Any info there?
We've never heard anything about the Vatican helping to move valuables, but people, hell yes. There are a lot of people in South America whose last name is Kirchner, and that's Italian or Spanish, whatever it means, churchman. It becomes as Kirchner. As a matter of fact, the president of Argentina like 10, 12 years ago was Nestor Kirchner. And when he died, his wife, Christina Kirchner, became the president. She's the vice president right now, I think. But yeah, the Vatican, there's no question the Vatican helped thousands and thousands of people escape. Back then, there was no fingerprints or DNA or any of that stuff. And so you could say, oh, my name is John Smith. Oh, okay, John, here, go on over here. And they could get documents. And nobody in Argentina is going to worry about it because they needed the workforce. And the Western Europeans were the highly skilled, very intelligent people. And they came in there and helped make Argentina great. Argentina was a great country before the war. They were better than the United States, had more money, more prosperous. That was a bit of a liberal and gave away just about. She had two huge, big office buildings full of people whose sole job was to give away money.
Yeah, and that's why they're where they are now. Although I guess maybe, maybe the new guy might fix it up a bit. Anything else?
MAGA, MAGA, make Argentina great again. The last question would be, yeah, what is it? Everyone wants to speculate like, oh, Hitler's alive or whatever.
Well, he's not alive now.
34 years old.
No, I don't think anybody's saying. Slav, I don't think anybody's saying he's alive right now.
No, nobody's.
Yeah, I mean, and I am Russian, so like we were told that like the Red Army captured, like found his body with the supposed bullet hole and then burned it. So like it can't. Like they get basically how they said that what the U.S. Navy SEALs did to Osama bin Laden. Yeah, that's what the Soviets did. Yeah. In history repeats itself. But what would be the youngest surviving, like, either Nazi of Wehrmacht or Stufenstaffel or the Volkssturm? Like, what would be the last one? Like, do you think anyone who's, like, complicit, not like the simple foot soldier lackey, but the ones who are like, line them up, get rid of them. Burn these documents just because.
Probably not, because those people were in their 30s and 40s during the war years, and they sure ain't alive today.
Yeah, they'd be the oldest people in the world.
So that like 97-year-old in Brooklyn that they found like 2 years ago, do you think it was fair treatment to drag him out of his house?
I don't know. New York, that was in New York, you say? I think the people in New York have got a clean house with their politicians, but other than that,
I concur. All right, thanks, Slav.
All right, and the tale was good. Hey, redheads, they got hell of an ass. People are asking you to talk more about the girls. Less Nazi talk, more pussy talk.
Yeah, we're gonna that'll be part 2 with Harry. We're gonna get into that a little more.
Part 2,
right. Yeah. Thanks,
Slav.
Show
you pictures.
Do we know about? Actually, I'm gonna take this one call, and then I'll have a question about any relatives and stuff. One moment, please. Hello, Mark.
Hey, what's up? It's Mark again.
How's it going? I can hear myself. I don't know.
How's it going? I can hear myself. I don't know.
I don't know what's going on here. Mark, Mark, you're on, but I can hear.
You're good
myself.
now.
Oh, okay. All right, you're on again. This is Mark again. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I just have another question now that I know you are such an expert on U-boats. There's a lot of rumors, I don't know how substantial they are, about the Antarctic bases. One of the claims I recently heard in a Robert Seffer documentary is that some U-boats had the capacity to carry hundreds of tons, and I wonder if you could comment on that and if any U-boats were used to build bases outside of Germany during or after the war.
Well, as for building bases, no. They took over other bases in other countries. In France, they took the 5 on the Atlantic coast: Brest, Lorient, Saint-Nazaire, La Rochelle, and Bordeaux. They built structures there, but they used the ports that were there. The same in any other country they took over. But that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is Antarctica. I believe there's something there. What is it? I don't know. Some years ago, one a professional photographer. She lived in Monaco, Monte Carlo. So she was very close with the royal family, and she had done some groundwork, and we were going to see about getting an expedition put together. So I flew over to France. They picked me up with a chopper, landed me right in downtown Monte Carlo. I brought my tuxedo so I could go to the casino like Bond, James Bond.
Of course.
But we met with some of the ministers of Prince Albert. Everything was green flag go. We were supposed to get the use of the prince's yacht, which is the size of a cruiser. We had the financing set up. We had security forces set up. We had everything ready to go. So, okay, I flew on to Poland to talk to Igor Witkowski, who is the world's leading expert on Die Glocke, the Nazi bell. By the time I got back to the Monaco secret police had arrested my friend over there, beat the hell out of her, killed her little puppy, and she had to flee the country. Something down there we're not supposed to see.
Huh. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of world leaders that have gone there. It's very strange, and I don't know how. Again, this documentary didn't seem that credible to me, but there definitely is something interesting about Operation High Jump and even the pre-World War II German expedition into Antarctica.
Oh, yeah. That had to do with the island Trinidad, which is not Trinidad, which was owned by Brazil, is owned by Brazil. But in 1939, the Brazilians just pulled all our people off the island. They keep about 30 people. I was on that island. And they're only guys around here and lower the flag at night. But they pulled their people in 1939, and the Schwabenland expedition got there. And they built 2 80-meter high radio towers. I've got pictures of the foundations of one of them, and the little radio shack. And they used that as a jumping off point for South America, or for Antarctica. But then they all came back. Then, though, in 1941, the Brazilians came back, the Germans left. 1945, July, months after the German surrender, the Brazilians took their people off the island again, and a German contingent got there. And I saw a big rock that had painted 17/7 because one of the German sailors got killed in an accident there, and he's buried there on the island. They had people there from 1945. The island, it's only 2.5 miles long, and it's up and downhill, and the ground is all pebbles. But they had herds of goats, herds of pigs, and sea turtles. Fresh water, they had creeks and streams and pools all over the place, fresh water, right on the 30th parallel. And I was just doing something for this next issue of our magazine because late April of 45, Operation Mercator, they sent about 12.5 Type 9 U-boats to operate off the American East Coast, North America. And they sent 50 or 60 Type 7s all around England. So what does that do? There's no submarines in the middle of the Atlantic. It pulls all the ASW off. And you had a huge, big superhighway going down, right down the 30th parallel was like the white line on the highway, and it goes right through Trinidad. there's a huge tunnel that's big enough for a ship to go into. I couldn't get into it the time I was there because the weather was too harsh and the waves crashing in there. But these ships that were coming out of Europe to make the run for Argentina there during Operation Mercator, because all the Allied shipping and air was pulled to the edges and wide open runway down there, and a lot of them stopped there for fresh water and food, and then they went on to Argentina.
Interesting stuff.
I hope that didn't confuse you.
Yeah.
Confuse me.
Anything else, Mark?
Yeah. Do you find anything credible about the theories about the hollow Earth, maybe Antarctica or even Patagonia having entrances to the hollow Earth, or maybe some sort of military reason to be in Antarctica? I mean, what are your thoughts on all that? The whole mystery with Antarctica.
It's a mystery, that's for sure. Hollow Earth, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that, but I know that's what Admiral Byrd wrote, and two of our Shark Hunter members were part of his group. One was his adjutant. Forgot what his name was. He died a long time ago. If you're old enough to remember when you could buy little things that you put into salt water and they were live little baby seahorses, he made a fortune doing that, but he's been dead a long time. The other one was a petty officer on board the submarine Sonnet, USS Senate. And he lives near me. And I asked him, I said, you were on board that submarine. What the hell was going on? Why do you need a submarine down there to make maps? So I forgot everything he says. Stay alive longer that way, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mark.
No problem. Thank you.
Take care. Yeah, there's this guy, he's an anthropologist named Robert Sepper. I don't know if you know who he is or familiar, but he's I'm trying to get him on the show, but he makes these really interesting documentaries on YouTube, and he had one all about like these Nazi bases on like Antarctica. All right, let's take the last call of the night. One moment, please. Hello, last caller of the night. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, you got Brett.
Brett, one moment, please, Brett. All right, Brett, you're on with Harry. Go ahead.
Hey, Danny. Hey, Harry.
Hey, Brett.
Yep, Brett.
Got it.
Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for having me on last week. I appreciate it. I'll just ask two quick questions. You might be able to get another caller on.
Okay.
I just hopped on. It's kind of interesting. You're talking about Germany and Brazil. My grandmother was born in Holland, and also my grandfather from my mother's side. So, Harry, I got a question. My grandmother's father was a police officer in Eindhoven, Holland, Netherlands, and they hid Jews, and the town would come and use their phone because it was the only phone, because my grandmother's father, my great-grandfather, was a police officer, so they had the only phone line. And then my grandfather, who was also from Eindhoven, he would run bullets for the Americans, and he'd get paid in chocolate to do that. So I'm curious, that's my first of two questions. I'm curious if you've met anyone that has had some sort of similar experience, like hitting at home, being a kind of a Trump guy and a MAGA guy. I'm third generation immigrant, I believe. And with everything going on, and I get accused of being all these terrible words, and it's like, you don't know my family history. So I'm curious if you know anybody that has experienced something like that.
No, not personally. And I can duck out when people start talking.
Yeah, go ahead.
I tell them
No.
My is here from 1740.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Brett. Next question.
Yeah. Next question is, you're talking about a lot of South American Brazil refugee stuff, kind of like safe harbor. are you aware of the Confederate town down there where they still fly the Confederate flag? And I'm just curious of your opinion, if you know any bit about that history, and is something brewing down there, so to speak.
That I have never heard, so I don't know if it's yes or no. I don't know about it. German towns, yeah, there's a lot, and a lot of them still greet themselves up with the hand in the air. I don't speak Spanish, but I get along fine with my German down in South America, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay.
Okay. All right, Brett. Anything else?
All right. Thank you.
Take care. That was Brett, everybody. We have a question in the chat. This is from Dylan. I didn't forget you, man. I don't know if you know anything about this, but he says, do you know about how many Nazis pretended to be Jews in Chile? Do you know anything about that? He says, I have some suspicions about my father's side.
Never heard of it.
Never.
Don't know. I'm not saying yes or no. I just don't know.
Yeah, you just haven't heard of it. Okay, you know what? We're going to take one more call because we have the time. Thank you again, everybody, and Harry for joining us. One moment. Hello. Actual last call of the night. Who am I speaking with?
Sweet. You're speaking with Vincent, Danny.
Vincent. All right, Vincent, you are on with Harry. Last call. Go ahead.
Harry. I missed most of this show because I was taking a little nappy nap. But
it's too late to be napping.
The question, well,
anyways,
I got work early.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vincent.
Harry, the question on everyone's mind is, do you wash your legs?
It's a joke from another show.
I missed your other show.
Yeah, maybe the wrong show.
Wrong show. All right, Vincent. Thanks, man. We were discussing shower techniques, and it was a whole scandal because some of us don't wash our legs, and some of us do. So, but that's neither here nor there. All right, that's been the show. Harry, where can people? What's the best place for people to find you?
Best bet is just send an email to sharkhunters@sharkhunters.com.
Yep.
Say they heard the show. I'll send them the current issue of our magazine, and then I'll point them toward our website. Or you can just go sharkhunters.com, but don't be surprised if you pop up on the Spitbugger's website too, saying that I'm a Nazi.
Well, I'm Jewish, so they hopefully don't put me on there because that'll be confusing for everybody involved. But no, they're a bunch of clowns. Like, they're ridiculous. They'll literally, yeah, I know that the power. I know. Well, the problem is they have, unfortunately, a lot of undue or unfair influence because they're not to be trusted.
They got $500 million. I just ran their finances. They got $500 million in their ready account, and they brought in $70 million last year alone.
Yeah. Well, let's hopefully that kind of stuff, funny business, comes to an end. All right, and people can, if they want to grab your books, they can also do so on Amazon. I guess go via your website is maybe the best. Just go to sharkhunters.com. You can find.
They either get them from us or on Amazon. Either way.
Okay, excellent. Harry Cooper, thank you so much for joining me. I've been looking very forward to this episode. Hopefully, we'll have you back in the future. We can talk about everybody wants to know more about the ladies, less about the U-boats, and more. They're just interested in the ladies because I got a bunch of scumbags watching the show. Thank you very much, everybody. We will be possibly new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll be back next week. So keep an eye out for tomorrow because I still don't know yet. Otherwise, thank you very much. Catch some of y'all very soon. Have a good evening.
My shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurt. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5 got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenal. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me on some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Then they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. I'm pulling up fresh on some